You just go after it, and eventually there will be a time, if you keep learning, if you keep doing, that you can make not just money, but a ton of money from what you're really good at. Because when you're high quality, people pay.
Dare I say, this whole journey in doing what you like is a passion in progress. On the 64th episode of Passion in Progress, host of The Fire Show, Moby. Moby is a tech PM at DELL, but his passion is in helping early stage founders and creatives to build businesses through The Fire Show, pitch coaching, monthly events, and videos. He's interviewed the mayor of Austin, he's live streamed for the Entrepreneur Network, and actually, as of releasing this podcast today, there's a conference put on by the podcast movement, one of the biggest conferences for podcasting on earth. And guess who's the MC of it? That's right, Moby. And he also helps companies win startup pitch competitions, for which he has over $800K under his belt that has been funded for the companies that he's helped. I really love his show. I love what he's doing. So let's go ahead and drop into the 64th episode of the Passion in Progress show with the host of The Fire Show, Moby. What is up, Mercedes? Javier Mercedes here for yet again another Passion in Progress show where we talk to inspiring individuals, and hopefully through hearing their stories, you too are motivated to go out and pursue your passions as well. And I could not be more excited because I have the podcaster of Austin, Texas, Moby, on the podcast today. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you? That was a great intro.
Yeah, I think it just like gets me in the mood to podcast and do all those 100%. Things.
I think I'm in the mood now. Fuck
yeah,
let's do it. Okay.
Give the people your spiel, man. You're a man of many people. Like, you know a lot of people around town, and very interesting individual in a very cool place now. So
yeah,
give your spiel, man.
Sure. So I moved to the U.S. in 2010, and I moved here for college. And I started just, I came for college. I was going to go back home, and I got a job after college because I sucked in college somehow. I networked a way into an engineering job. I'm not an engineer by trade. I have an economics degree. Mm-hmm. My title was regulatory engineer, and I wanted to start a business. And I went to the immigration officer after I got my whole visa, and they said, no, you can't start a business. You have to put your head down, work until you can get a green card. And that's where my saga began of starting a podcast, hosting events, basically doing shit for free until I get the green card. And since then I've started a podcast, The Fire Show, after starting another one, Austin Fire Show. I started hosting my events in 2018. I've helped bring Outlier Podcast Festival in here to Austin and help people win pitch money at competitions.
Yeah, I would say if you're an entrepreneur in or around Austin, Texas, you probably know of Moby. He's a very well-connected guy.
He's a jackass. That's very true. He's a jackass. Exactly. I love it connecting, man. I find it so interesting.
That's where I kind of want to begin, because where I first met you was at one of the events that you hosted. Can you just talk about, in general, meeting people in person as opposed to online, and the importance that has played in your career so far?
Absolutely. So when I was starting to meet people, the first goal was, before the podcast, just networking. Yeah. Talking to people, saying hello, hi, how are you? And just getting to know people, right? When I started promoting the show, I was like, I got to promote. I got to get the emails. And I started networking online too by adding people. I found that both online and offline networking work. But when you're connecting in real life and networking, you have this opportunity to listen to a person and make them feel good and make them feel interesting, because you actually are genuinely interested in them, and have this connection that you can't have online. You can still have something like that, but I find that, have you ever talked to a person and been like, I want to get out of this conversation? It happens.
Well, at networking events, sometimes their niche doesn't really line up with your thing, and you just can't understand what they're talking about, which I think that happens. But for the most part, you can find something interesting to talk about.
100%. I think there's two ways to go about it. At that point, either you ask them better questions in a conversation. You're like, okay, what do you do, etc., and you wait for that spark where they're like, oh my god, I would love to talk about this. Versus they become very self-promotional and then you just kind of excuse yourself and leave. But I love connecting in real life, because you get to see the light in their eyes go off and what they want. And I just find that interesting, because I could just go deep into this. But, the U.S. is now my home, and I got to make it my home. And the more people I know here, the happier, the higher my chances of actually being happy are. Who knows if I'm actually going to be happy? But that's a different story.
Yeah, isn't it part of the Myers-Briggs? I'm not like a really big, I don't know that much about it, but isn't there something to specific people's personalities where they refuel by actually interacting with people?
Yeah.
With that in mind, can you get into how the events that you've put on and that you've been a part of, what that's played towards your career?
Yeah. When I first wanted to get involved in events, I got in by helping other people. When I left college and I started working, it was like, okay, people are doing things, I want to get involved. And I started off by helping 3-day startup. I helped take the trash out. And then I ordered food for like a year and a half. And then I went to meetups and said, what's interesting? Then I did the thing that everyone should do, which is, hey, can I help you in some way? My getting into events was very natural and was me forcing myself to get over the fear of actually getting on stage. Because I would volunteer, then they would be like, talk about yourself on stage. And public speaking was one of the worst things the most scary thing I could ever do. And I started doing that, starting emceeing events, and I was just there at events. And I'd love to be involved because there was something in holding an event for somebody that helps them, or helps them find one new friend. That's awesome, or one new idea. And I started doing masterminds because I love people's ideas and I love talking about them. They're so interesting. I wish I had more hobbies, but no, I love stuff like that. We could talk about a lot of podcasting stuff for hours. And I started hosting masterminds because I was like, I'm helping people with the podcast. I want to help them one-on-one because I feel like I could bring people who could help them, or I could give them something that would be helpful. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're starting. And I did that about 4 times. It is really cumbersome to have a free mastermind because it's free. No one has to get in the game. You are just hell-bent on curating, and it's great, but it takes a while. And so I thought instead of serving 8 people at a time, I could serve 80 by hosting my events. And it was scary hosting the first event because I was like, I have never hosted my own thing. I've seen it. I've seen panels. I've seen presentations. Let me just first do that. Let me just put up something, ask 5 of my friends, not people that I don't know, friends that I like, that I respect, that I know their shit. Can I curse?
Go ahead.
Done. Boom. Shit. Okay. I want to get them on stage and I want to do this for the first time. And I did that in December, January, and I slowly realized it's so much fun. And it puts you in a place of you are on stage helping curate knowledge and just experience for people coming there. And you can impact 80 people. You can live stream it, promote everything, live stream it, and it just has so much impact on people, especially if you ask the right questions as a moderator, brings people together. I love it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And the way that you, I wouldn't say dictate because I feel like that's a harsh word, but the way that you curate the conversation as it goes, it's very effective, and it gets across what the audience is going for. Because for the audience that's listening, I attended one of the events that he put on, and it was great because you would ask questions to the audience, and you would say things like, "Okay, so I have this in mind, but does anybody really want to talk about that, or do you want to talk about this?" And then by show of hands, then you're already getting where the room is in accordance to the audience retention, which is awesome. You've done the curating of conversations. You've done your podcasts and all that. What do you talk about? Give the audience that's listening to this that doesn't know who you are, like, what is your thing that you're really passionate about?
On the podcast or generally?
Whatever you want to bring up, man.
Okay, so for the podcast, I started the podcast because I was in a position that I wanted to start a business in Austin because it was a growing startup hub in 2016, it obviously still is, but I had questions that I could not find the answers to, which was, how do I find a co-founder? Not that I could legally start a business, but I had these I wanted these answers, right? I wanted to hoard that knowledge, and I knew people who wanted to start businesses, and they had the same questions: customer acquisition, sales, marketing, operations, raising money, and I wanted to serve me and my friends. Over these last 3 years, it's gone to a place where I want to help people who are 12 months pre-starting their business and 2-3 years after starting their business. They don't have an exit. They're not super established. They don't have, 40 million in revenue a year. They're about to quit. They're about to quit their jobs. They're about to start a company, or they're 2 years after starting a company. Those people's questions, as I meet them, as I talk to them, they're creative. but they have questions, right? How do I raise money? How do I operate my business? From that stems my podcast, which is helping people in Austin by interviewing the people in Austin who would actually know that shit. And I love it. I get to talk to people at networking events because apparently every event in Austin is about entrepreneurship. Oh my God.
Yes.
You went to one last night.
Yeah.
I get to meet them. And here's the best thing about making content for the people who go to the events that I go to. If they have a problem, which they do when we talk about it, they say, oh yeah, I'm dealing with this, or I sense something. I'm going to be like, oh, episode number 45 is about this. And that's the podcast. And my eventual goal now that I'm legal, I can make money, is to help so many people want to build these companies the established way, raise money, right? Or go this institutional way, grind for 2-3 years, or just focus on exposure and just getting a lot of attention their way and maybe monetizing it. I want to build a system that help people accelerate their way to making digital products. That's going to be my next company. Well, my first company, the next company. Yeah. And that's what I want to go. That is my passion because I was in that position. I didn't know what to do. I almost got expelled from school, dropped an entire semester of classes. Sorry, Mom. Failed calculus twice. I was horrible, low self-esteem. And I think giving people the ability to make something of their lives around what they care about, it's fantastic. I will also focus on making money. Very important to me. But also just making money while serving a purpose.
How fast do you think your brain goes? Because you meet a lot of intelligent people. You talk to a lot of people. Where do you think you're at now as opposed to where you were back in 2016?
In terms of meeting people or generally in my life?
Yeah, just generally in your life. Because I feel like the more people that you've surrounded yourself with, they're all high, thriving, go-getter people. And surrounding yourself with that kind of enthusiasm all the time, but not just enthusiasm, but as you're saying, with the practical advice to implement the strategy, the strategery,
yeah,
to do the certain things to be successful. I'm just asking from my personal experience, doing this podcast, my mind's shifted in how I think about a lot of different things. How about for yourself?
Oh, 100%. I think what happens sometimes is we read something like an article or some high level book and we're like, I know things. You're like, I know things. I know things. But you don't. And talking to people and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in this with a set of questions about a topic that I think I know something about. And it turns out I don't know shit. So that was extremely helpful when interviewing people. I'm glad that you think I'm funny. And that was really good, which was, hey, I don't know enough about what I think I know a lot about. And also, you meet these people in these creative startup places and they become your friends, and they don't become your friends in terms of, we'll just talk about business. I'm in a place where I really like my friends. Not that I didn't like my friends back then, just all my friends from college left. Now I've got this place where I might not have one group of people, but I have people that I can reach out to and just go grab a drink with, go to happy hour with, just see and actually enjoy them not because they're working company, but they have a certain style and essence and purpose that I connect with. So I'm really happy that I was able to meet people that I'm now friends with, and I genuinely am really happy to see them whenever I run into them. And lastly, confidence. Confidence was huge. 2016, 2014, 5 years ago, confidence was just ugh. Ego is still there, right? The confidence was very low.
For those that aren't watching, his hands are down on the ground right now.
Yeah. I'm going to do a push-up right now just to show and rise up to show that, confidence is very different now because instead of being scared of something and not doing it, I'm now scared of things but doing them. So that's helped a lot.
That's awesome. I love the way that you phrase that because so much can be learned from throwing yourself into the 100%. Deep end. It's kind of weird because at these different panels, listening to different podcasts, reading different books, there's certain through lines of that same phrase that you just said. But when you keep doing it, you can see how much further you can progress as a human being in your mental capacity and what you're willing to put yourself through in order to succeed. Yeah, which is really cool. Let's switch it up because I know you love content creation and talking about content creation, and a lot of content creators listen to this podcast. what kinds of advice do you want to give, like just to begin with for content creation? Because I know you get a question. I know you build content around content creation. So
Meta.
What's the best pieces of advice that you want to start off there?
Yeah, I'm really bad at this. Consistency. Like you were talking before, right, about just making it consistent. That's work in itself. That is so much work. And I think consistency is the hardest thing to hit. But once you do that, because I'm not good at consistency. I'm so bad at consistency.
I would say there is no once you hit it. It's like always a ongoing thing.
Yes, I agree. I think you can hire something out. Like podcast editing, maybe, or something that you are not so great at and someone else could do better than you, if you want to pay for it. Like sometimes I've paid for it, sometimes not, because my income was capped because I couldn't legally start a business outside of the US, outside of my day job. So consistency, once you're kind of there. Second part is connect with as many people as you can. I think we get into this idea that I'm slowly trying to get myself out of. If I'm good enough, people will give me attention and there will be a lot of incoming. Just put in the work, put in the time, make the content. I'm trying to flip it, and it's going to take a year or two. I'm trying to go on the offensive and say, I'm going to add people on Facebook who I find slightly interesting, maybe have no connections, but I can see kind of some way that we can talk. Add them, send them a message. The worst thing they can do is not respond. And if they add me and we have even one conversation or 5 minutes, we're like, this is what I do, blah, 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 blah. Great to meet you. Great to connect. Happy Thursday. Every time I make content, they will see it on their newsfeed. And I can do this for Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. I think we shouldn't wait for attention. I think we should go and aggressively add people. And if some people respond and say, you're a bot, or why are you adding me? No one does that. No, people just ignore your messages. I think be aggressive in connecting. 'Cause if you know your target market and you're like, this is going to be helpful for people.
I think it was your most recent podcast that you said, and it struck a chord with me, was that yes, you can do that, but there are a lot of people that have the idea that like this is like self-centered of me always putting myself out there, always like, look at me, I'm always showing myself and what I'm doing. What would you have to say about somebody that doesn't want to showcase all the time what they're doing, or what, I don't know, pulling out the camera at any given time that probably would be good content, but they're like, whatever.
Yeah. There's a fear of self-indulgence, right?
That's the term that you use. Yeah.
And I went through that recently. I've been posting about my green card journey a lot over the last 5 months, because someone told me, do it. Stop being so afraid of saying you have these restrictions. And I posted about it aggressively, got a lot of engagement on a lot of platforms. I would mention it on panels, and I got the interview. I streamed that, opening that live. I went to the interview a month later. I streamed that afterwards live.
What interview are you talking about?
The green card interview.
Yeah, okay.
Then I got the approval. I made a video about it as I was opening it. I recorded the video, and I found the card in my mail like 2 days later. And I was thinking, in like the last month and a half, I've posted these pieces of content which people are going to say, that's great. Why do I fucking have to keep congratulating you on your social media? Because I see it. And that felt self-indulgent. I posted it 2 days later, but I would say for that is, one, yes, there is a self-indulgent part, but I think it's important for people to see your journey, because when people connect with you, and in 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months, in a year, 3 years, 10 years, they see your progression, and they can come back and say, I'm glad I was part of that journey. Just so they can say, oh, he sucked at making video games 3 years ago, right now, and he's going to be great a year later. I think you should let people in. The second part is, I would say, leave it up to feel as well. If you don't feel like posting something, don't, but make sure that you post value, not just look at my life, right? Because sometimes you can come across as, he's posting too much about himself. But if you're giving something, if you're teaching something, do that. This is a guy in town, CJ Finley. He has such great captions in his Instagram, and he tells stories and he teaches. Shout out to CJ. That's amazing. He posts every day, and he always just has these long things which are useful. I think teaching something to people, telling stories even when it's about yourself or about your company, whatever, that's a good way to do it versus just being like, hey, look at what I'm doing. That's emoji, exactly. Wink emoji. That's one I use.
What's interesting to me with that concept is the world's a huge place, and you don't know who is going to connect with any piece of content. So there might be one where you're just showing yourself. Now, I'm going to reference one of your Instagram stories because there was one where you were preaching about like, all right, I have to be consistent about this, talking about consistency, and it's like 11:59 p.m. and then you just like, you can tell you want to go to bed, and you just like, here's my Instagram story. I know I need to make content, and there. But the thing is, I saw that and I was just like, man, he's doing it, man.
Yeah.
Like at least he put it out there that he wants to be doing this. He's practicing what he's preaching, and you can see it. Now, there in of itself is like, you're just sitting in your room and you're just showcasing yourself.
Yeah.
But at least you're showing every single day that like, hey, I'm dedicated to this one principle, which you're standing by something, which I think is pretty powerful.
Oh yeah. So I'm curious about your perspective on this, which is how do you balance that yourself?
Look at this podcaster switching what are you doing, man? What are you doing?
I forget. Okay, I will shut up and just answer questions.
But what was the question?
How do you feel about that? The balance between, I think markets should be flooded like with your content, but it can get to a point where you're like self-indulgent, but you should eventually break through it.
Okay, so I'll tell you one thing that I'm doing right now. I'm in this challenge that I'm doing, #75hard. It's have you heard of?
Yeah, I have.
So for the audience that doesn't know, it's Andy Farella.
That's a hard challenge.
MF CEO Project podcast. Hands down, one of the best podcasts. If you just want to go out and kick ass at life, listen to it. Just listen to any episode, and he delivers value. Anyhow, right now he has a challenge going on called 75 Hard. And for those that don't know, it's drink a gallon of water a day, read 10 pages of a self-development or business book, and you have to read them. You can't do an audiobook. You can't drink any alcohol. You have to You have to follow a strict diet. And then you have to work out twice a day for 45 minutes. One of those workouts has to be outside. So if it's raining all day, like one of those workouts still has to be outside. And right now, I haven't really been posting about it.
You haven't, no.
But I'm in like week 5. And the thing is, like, I've been recording a little bit about it, but I tell you, man, it just takes up so much time just to make sure that I'm doing all of the things. Oh, and the last one is a progress pick every single day. So there's 5 different things. And I like, as it's progressed, I'm like slowly getting more towards like, oh, I should be filming more of this just so people can see the journey. But at the same time, I'm like right before this interview, I was like on a run. Then I have to go take a shower and then get this podcast studio set up on time. So I'm like trying to get everything all situated. Plus you're trying to do my full-time freelance job and then also make my YouTube content and the podcast stuff all at the same time.
All being a family man.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And I'm like, it's definitely like an Instagram stories thing. But when I go to like share something, I'll be like, hey, I'm reading this book right now. And then every single time I share, I'm like, well, now I'm going to have to share like, here's the 5 things of this challenge. And here's all this. So I don't know. There's definitely a transgression that's happened from my mental and physical like health. Like I've lost like, I don't know, like maybe 10 pounds right now, but but the thing is like, I didn't really see myself as over. I didn't really do it for the whole weight thing.
You just like the challenge?
It was more for the discipline.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that was when I started. Now when I'm like going through it, it's like, there's so many other things. Like I don't drink coffee anymore. Like I haven't drank coffee for 4 weeks. And
I love coffee.
Yeah, and I love coffee, but it's because I have an energized body. Like I just normally when I don't drink coffee for like 24 to like 36 hours, I'll start to get a headache just because of caffeine withdrawal. But when I started doing this, like it wasn't there. And like I don't have like oh, I want to go like drink coffee whenever I smell it. Like I still like, I love the smell of coffee, and like it's not a thing that I don't have to drink coffee, but I just at this point I'm just like not drinking it because I'm like energized. But that's one thing that I've been doing for like 5 weeks. I haven't really been talking about it though.
You haven't, because I follow you.
Yeah, but it's like, here's a personal journey thing. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'll make a YouTube video about it, like when all of it is said and done. But there's another part of me that like, oh, if I film it, I want to get like good angles and do all this other stuff. So when I do make the YouTube video, it's all going to be really nice. And like, so it's all, it's a conundrum because there's definitely people out there that are much better at like, no, just tell the things right now. Why aren't you just filming this right now and telling them how you feel right now, you know?
Exactly.
As opposed to making a polished product. I don't know, but that's one of those things to answer that question from the podcaster on the other podcasters.
Dude, it's 100% a balance, and I don't have it because right now I'm building a course and I am going heavy into creating it for the next 9 days. I've got a timer on an Excel sheet, and then I'm gonna go into marketing it. Maybe I should be marketing it heavy right now and like showing people how I'm building it. Sometimes I just gotta make a choice. I have no idea what the answer is. Yeah.
The other thing too with that is where your focus is. Like for me, I was doing a lot of stuff with Instagram. Like it would take me a long time to make videos for Instagram and other things of that nature. And like the numbers just wouldn't grow. And like they would be like, if you looked at my numbers like maybe 6 months ago, I probably have 100 less followers. And I focused my time now more on YouTube and this podcast because along with like freelance and all the other things I mentioned, it just like I have to cut out something because if I'm trying to spread myself into all of these different mediums and be like a Gary V without all of Gary V's
28 people on this one person,
then because being a creative, it's hard to do that when you know you can do all of those things well, but when you try and do all of them well at the same time, I'm seeing it. I'm just hitting a wall where like, oh, I could have really done really well on that one video, but I was spending too much time doing this.
Yeah.
And that's where I've kind of, with Instagram, I've kind of just like, all right, I'm just going to do like kind of updates and other things of that nature. But now I've really focused more on the podcast and YouTube. And I think from that, it can trickle down into like, well, if people want to follow my journey on Instagram, then they can.
Yeah, I agree. It's always just a battle. Have you? Okay.
Look at this. He's like completely switching it. Actually, let's talk about that. What do you think about when going into conversations with people? I would like to ask, like, what would like keep a conversation meaningful? But for you, when you enter a conversation on your podcast, like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. So, I'll have a general idea. I go in this with the process of with the idea of a person's going to click on this podcast episode and they're going to want to learn something, right? And I'll usually have something like how to manage your attention better, how to do this, how to do this. And I think of a general roadmap of if someone is really bad at something or doesn't know enough about it, how do you talk about 3 points which eventually get them to be better at that thing? If it's making a marketing strategy, how do I ask in 3 acts the expert in front of me how we get there? And I probably have 5 to 6 questions planned out, and the rest is just like what you're doing, is listening attentively. Like if you do that for 2 hours, your head hurts, right?
Yeah.
And asking them follow-up questions to fill up. From the 6 questions, you end up with about 20 questions. I think just this journey of how to get better at something over time and expanding your questions by improvising during the interview from 6 to however many. When I do panels, they're very improvised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can. Well, you don't know what the audience is gonna say.
Yeah, or the people too.
Mm-hmm.
So I just go in with this idea of this is the eventual course of it, and I'll figure out on the way. And it took a while to get there too. It's not like I knew how to do that.
Can you talk about a little bit what you were like trying to go on stage for the first time, and then like where you're at now?
100%. So the first time I was trying to get on stage. No, the first time I was trying to talk in front of 40 people was when I became president of this organization at UT, and I was going to talk about, hey, welcome to the new year, blah, 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 blah. And I went in the bathroom and almost vomited. I can't remember if I actually vomited or if I just almost vomited. I can't remember because I was so nervous. And then I took a piece of gum, maybe 5, and then I went and talked. And I was just terrified, absolutely terrified. And it took me 3 months of Toastmasters at UT, 1 month of...
What's Toastmasters?
Toastmasters is this organization worldwide which has chapters, and people meet once every week for an hour, sometimes usually at evening during the day, and people come and practice their speeches. They have PATs, which is you have this competent communication PAT, and they give you a manual saying, these are the 10 speeches you make. And then you're in a group of 10, 20 people. Everyone has 3 slots. Every week has 3 slots. People come in, talk, and then they just get practice and an encouraging environment. It's really helpful. We did 3 months of that at UT, presentation class at UT, tried to do more work presentations, 8 months of improv comedy, and then I think 4 to 6 months of Toastmasters at DELL.
Well, what would you do in improv that would help?
Number one, I think we make a lot of, normal people make mistakes while talking or doing something, or they fumble. It's not like TV where you say one thing and it's completely clear, right? I'll say something like historical, right? That's a fumble. And in improv, when you make a mistake on stage or in a improvised conversation, you're supposed to say, hey, I failed. You take a bow and everyone claps. I love that because it reinforced the idea that this kind of mistakes we make and feel really bad about, like, oh my God, what are people thinking of me if I mispronounced that word or did something else? What are people thinking of me? It takes you away from that fear. The second part is the teachers are so well trained and they take you to a point of enjoy what you're doing. You don't have to act. You just have to say yes and. That's a classic improv game where you just take what the other person is saying, yes, and you add something, right? And you just keep playing this game. And they tell you to do it. And one of the best things about improv games like that is you're just being yourself. You're playing for 3 hours a week around people who are supportive, like a teacher who's trained in this, who can coach you. And you end up walking away with this feeling, which is, I can be myself. I wouldn't say good or whatever. I can just be myself and everything will be fine. Like if you were yourself and you are 4 out of 10 of how you express yourself, I think improv gives you the confidence to take it up to 7, 8 easily.
Can I ask, when you were doing that, did you ever get a criticism, like when you were in the beginning of like, stop trying to act and just actually be who you are while you're performing, if that makes sense?
Great question. I didn't get that. I felt it myself. Because my first class that I was taking, I remember I did 2 acts in a day, and I was playing what I thought would be cool, the angry-ish straight man in an act. Like, not like, is that the, what do you say, the straight man, the guy who someone else is crazy and the other one is, yeah. And the other person was just saying things and I would be like, no, we're doing this. I was the serious person, right? Just like straight arrow. And I realized after that I didn't feel good doing that. And I felt like I was pretending to be this cool person on stage. And like, no, this doesn't matter to me. No, I'm not going to take your ball of energy and throw it out and play. I felt super bad about that. And I slowly learned through their coaching, it wasn't me, how to let go and be like, fuck it, I'm going to do whatever I want, whatever I feel like. That was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I had personally had like a whole month, 2 month, 3 month like long course with a group of people, type of thing. And in the third stage of it, you get in front of this group and I think I was supposed to sing like Soul Man or something like that. And it's kind of like, I haven't done improv before, but for me, I was supposed to get in front of the group and start singing Soul Man. And I'm like, I don't know the lyrics, but I know like, oh, I'm a soul man. Like I know that part. So I start singing it and everybody it's just like a small group of people in the teacher, and everybody that's there, you can just see it on their faces. They're like, he doesn't believe in what he's like saying right now. And it was definitely one of the most authentic experiences because they had me keep saying it. Then I kept like singing it, and then like the teacher would ask the group like, "Do you think he's actually saying like? Do you think he's believing what he's saying?" Like, and I'm just sitting here. This is after like 5 minutes of saying the same thing, and I'm like. And then after you push through that, and then you actually like, and then I would just like say I'm a soul man, and like I would like break this threshold, and then it was like you could, if I were another person in the room, you could physically see me be like, oh, this is an authentic version of who Javier is, as opposed to this is Javier trying to put on a show.
Yeah.
Like I think I started out with like trying to show off by beatboxing, like
really?
beforehand. Like, oh, I'm gonna show these people, and then it was just like it didn't play because everybody else was there to like really progress and everything, and I'm just like sitting here trying to be a cool guy. You know?
Yeah. It happens. I think that was, by the way, great coach whoever taught you. That was great. One moment I had
Sylvia High. Aiming High is the name of her organization. Like
Really?
just by chance. Yes.
and
Great.
the name is spelled High too.
Yeah.
I would have loved to misspell that on camera.
That one little experience was like, stop trying to put on an act.
100%. I think one of the most attractive things on the planet is somebody who's who they are. And you can be like, oh, they're not arrogant or like overconfident, but they're just who they are and they enjoy it. And you can sense that coming from people, right? You don't meet a lot of people who are 100% who they are. I maybe have met people, but that is just so attractive in a person.
How would that play towards content creation? Just to keep it more on like what we were talking about before.
For content creation, it would probably be what people say, finding your voice, because we start off by trying to copy what's popular. Well, that's how we write their descriptions, how we share it on Facebook, how we talk on video. Some person that we look up to and we say, I'm going to talk like them. I'm going to try to have the same setup like them. I think that's a good place to start. I think you should definitely steal in the start. 100%. Keep stealing. Yes. There's a great book about this too. Steal Like an Artist. But I think eventually you should make yourself slightly uncomfortable with every single thing you do. I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump out of my comfort zone, like, in small steps, right? If I'm taking a video, I'm going to be more animated just like I am in real life, or animated the way that I want to be on video by small degrees. And you keep doing that for other things. And a year or two of those small steps, you look back, you're like, I'm much closer to who I want to be on camera than I was before. And it's not pretending to be somebody, it's just being who you want to be, not because you think Gary Vaynerchuk is cool or somebody else, but being who you want to be and feeling good about it. That was great. I enjoyed it. Fuck yeah.
Which is true. I did get a comment once about, so you mentioned my intro, right? And one of my friends here in Austin listens to the show and is like, but the thing is, like, you're not really like, when I'm talking to you in person, you're not like the energetic like intro that you do. And I'm like, yeah, but that's part of like, you just have to get really amped to do a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Like, not only that, but you have to, I feel like when you're creating content, you have to extend by like 20%. And then when you go back and look at it or listen to it, you're like, okay, that actually landed 30% less than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
What has been a through line of all your guests? Something of success or some habit or whatever it may be through all of the guests. Like, what have you seen be a really big piece of advice?
Yeah. So I think one piece of advice that pulls them together is the journey of not knowing something, curious about something, starting to execute, and having a solid base, whatever that is, starting a business, getting into operations, going into music. I think the journey is something that ties people, because I asked them, how did you start? What were the obstacles? But the thing that I implemented the most, this is going to sound very self-promotional. Well, when I interviewed the mayor for the first time, I wanted to ask, I didn't give a shit about how you ran the city. I didn't give a shit about the politics. Because I don't care. I don't even know the bills. I don't even know like who are council members.
Nobody got time for that.
Yeah, nobody got time for that. And I interviewed.
He listens to this.
Yeah, he doesn't. Oh, by the way, so I interviewed him twice, and I realized he didn't know my name, because the second I met him, I didn't say my name, and I just forgot. I got on stage at the Outlier Festival, and I said, "Hello, Mayor Adler," and he looks at me, and I can see it in his face. He's like,
"Hi,
good morning." Anyway, so I'm talking to the mayor, and I asked him how he manages his attention, because he has so many incoming requests, so many things to do, so many priorities. Like, how the hell do you make sure that you work on the proactive parts of your life that are actually gonna, of the city that are actually gonna have an impact, versus deal with the thousands of messages in email, in real life, calls, important people, everyday citizens that just want to take away attention. He talked about team, but he said, when I wake up, the first thing I do is go in a dimly lit room and let the thoughts that come to me in the morning just come. Then I read for a bit, write for a bit, and then I go do my day. And I love that because I noticed that when I just woke up half an hour before a day, and I would take my time, I would just have coffee and try to wake up and listen to one playlist that I have on my phone and just let the thoughts come to your mind without taking action. It just created this feeling of, I don't meditate. I wish I did, everyone wishes they could, but it just creates this feeling of feeling grounded that, okay, I'm ready.
That's crazy. To my extent, doing this challenge, running, like just this morning, I came up with so many more ideas because I don't have something shoving into my ear, like listening, or I'm not in front of my computer consuming content. Like there's no content around, just me
and yourself,
and being really tired in Austin, Texas sun and thinking about all the other things. But I used to run in high school, and I remember you get so many more ideas because you're forced to just have you and your thoughts. And then
100%.
when you're for me, I was with my cross country buddies. That's when some of the best conversations we would have because one, you're trying to overcome a goal as a team, we have to go run for 50 minutes or an hour and a half, and you have to go run with these people. Yeah. And then you're like, what are we going to talk about? And then you just team build while you're doing that. But then it's just since you're stuck with these people for that long, you just, hey, we're running and we're talking. But now just running by myself, there's so much more time to evaluate. I don't know what the term would be there.
Reflect, whatever that is.
But I feel like my thought process for future planning and things of that nature, and even if it's not that, just being grateful for things or whatever just as you put it, man, just letting come to my head, whatever comes to my head. And I'm like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that one thing. I'll message this person about that, whatever. Yeah.
A good way to hack that is the floating in a sensory deprivation tank. Have you
Never
tried that
done
yet?
that.
Oh my God, dude, you have to do it. There's this place called True Rest Float Spa. Amazing in Austin. Extremely friendly, great prices. And you can do it for an hour and you lay down, right? There's nothing. From a guy who just constantly moves all the time and has to do something. The first time I did it, that's where I got the idea for the event.
Can you explain what the process is? Because
Sure.
I'm really intrigued now.
So you go in the place, and the concept, it's a float pod. It's a big pod, 8 by probably 4 feet, filled with about, this is what, a foot?
Yeah.
2 feet, foot and a half of just super salty water, so that when you lie in it, and you don't move, you float.
Okay.
You do float. And they give you a whole room. There's a shower you can change. And you can turn the lights off and you can close the lid. So when you were there, you're in complete darkness. You don't feel anything because you're just floating, right? And you don't really bump in the walls because you just eventually just are there and your mind wanders and wanders. The second time I fell asleep.
In the water?
Oh, in the water.
Jeez.
But it doesn't matter because it's a foot and you float.
Oh, okay.
You just float, right?
Okay.
Without doing anything, you just float. And it allows your mind to wander just crazy. And sometimes it works really well. That's where the idea of my events come out. Because you go in this semi-trance about you just think, you calm down and things come and maybe some ideas come and sometimes it clicks, sometimes it's not. The third time I did it, I was just so, not agitated, but just so hyper. I rolled up in a ball and I was just fucking just going around and around on the floor because I was so bored. Sometimes it works, but it's a great way to do it. You should try it.
I'm intrigued now. That's awesome. Let's start to wrap it up.
Sure.
2 questions at the end of each podcast. Why do you do what you do?
I do what I do. Oh my God, I wish I had talked more about this in therapy so I could figure this out. I do what I do. Well, one, my family's not in the U.S. It's only me here. If I'm here, I need to find a reason to be here, right? My quality in life back home is really good, and I don't see a need to be here. And if I'm still just going to do a job, raise a family, I don't see a point in being in the U.S. If I'm going to be here, I should 100% make it worth it because this was really hard to get here. It took a lot of money, took a lot of time, took a lot of patience to be here, and I should make it the best. The second thing is, somehow I found something that I like doing, and it's given me this ability to feel good about it and slowly level up and do scarier things and be excited about my life. Like, oh my God, I get to do this. So, and I'm just very driven by that. And people are cool. People are just cool.
Name of podcast, Moby, people are cool.
People are cool. Exactly.
Can you talk about the reference of time that you've been here doing what you're doing, not your main job, and the amount of effort that you've put into making content and all this other stuff with the idea that you're not going to get any money from it?
Yeah, great question. So the whole situation was outside of the day job that that sponsored my stay in the US, my work visa. I couldn't make any money outside, but I wanted to start a business, and I had this void in me which told me I just can't go in and party every weekend and have brunch and just do that and do Monday to Friday again and again for years. I'll go crazy. I discovered the idea of building something through 3-day startup, and I started off by saying, I'm going to create a podcast and apply for my green card. It'll be here in a year. He wasn't here in a year. I started another podcast, interviewed like hundreds of people, started helping people win money.
For pitching.
Yeah. I started a master's. With one of the reasons I did the master's, the second reason probably, was so I could pass the time until I got my green card. And I started doing more, and that's one of the reasons. So that's why you should do a master's, to pass the fucking time. Great idea. Great idea.
Can you tell the audience how much you actually help people earn in investment money?
Yes, $770,000 for 2 companies, Grub Tubs and Lead Suites. Love those dudes. They won at the WeWork Awards and then Mass Challenge. And I've helped other people win second, but that doesn't count because it's second. No, I'm kidding. And then I also actually finally won 2 things at pitch competitions for myself, and I felt great about that, which was I pitched in front of Girl Scouts, 100 Girl Scouts, an idea that I just made up, got a Capital Factory membership, then we had an operations plan for my master's. But I've been just doing this for a while because I love it, and now I can finally fucking make money from the podcast, from the events, from the masterminds, from the networking, from the live streams, and a little bit. That was a lot of talk.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Like, I find it, it's just part of your story now.
Useful.
Yeah, it's just like for people to want to do something, but then you're forced to not think about the money aspect. But even though you're talking about the money aspect in all of your content, I find that so interesting. Last question is, to get from where you were, I guess before you even came to the States, to where you're at now, what would you tell people?
I would tell people that college was one of the worst times for me ever, because I was doing horribly and everything told me my friends were doing better than me, and academically I was not passing classes. I was too depressed to go to classes. I felt like shit, super low self-esteem. I think those are just phases. No, well, those are real things, but you can get better. With help or yourself, you can put in the work to get better and feel better about yourself, be more confident, and finding a place that you feel competent is one of the most important things. That is a turning point for people, right? Which is, you find something after years and years or decades of feeling like shit or not finding anything worth doing. You find something you can be competent in and just go after it. Even if people say you can't make money from it, you just go after it, and eventually there will be a time, if you keep learning, if you keep doing, that you can make not just money, but a shit ton of money from what you're really good at. Because when you're high quality, people pay.
Dare I say, this whole journey in doing what you like is a passion in progress.
That's a great way to do it. I love it. That's fantastic. I was gonna say, what is he gonna say? Well done.
All right. Where can people find you?
On Instagram at notthatmoby, and my website 2weekcontentbootcamp.com.
Oh, what was the website one more time?
2weekcontentbootcamp.com.
Okay, so 2 week. Is it the number 2 or spelled out 2?
Both. But 2.
Oh, dang, he's got it all on.
I was like, it's $12. I gotta get it.
Awesome. If you are looking for somebody that is all about making you a better content creator, look no further. If you're also an entrepreneur, follow his podcast. It's a great, like, all of the information. Moby never puts out anything. He thinks of the end user. I feel like you want to not put out trash. You want to make it sure that if people are spending time listening or interacting or viewing anything that you're doing, you think of them and like, how can I make this valuable to the end user? Thank you so much. And until next time, if you wanted to share out this podcast and tell a friend about it, that'd be awesome.
Do it.
That'd be so awesome of you. And I hope you're out there living a life of abundance. I'll see you guys next episode. Thank you so much.
Boom.